Okay, the next segment we're going to cover here on this display is actually cleaning the outside of the house in preparation for applying the WoodGuard preservative. If you notice here, these logs have discolored quite a bit. This comes from the logs being rained on many times. The sun's actually started to bleach some of them out. This can happen over several months, could happen over a couple weeks time frame. All depends on the time of the year you're building, how much rain you get, humidity, temperature, stuff like that. But what we're going to do here, we're going to take some Clorox bleach mixed with some water, 50-50 mix, and we're actually going to spray that onto the logs, and we're going to clean these up. Now, before you get started with the bleach, what you'd want to do is take a regular garden hose and some water, make the wall wet, not saturated that the water just runs off of it, just a light mist so the surface of the logs is wet. You want to take the bleach, and a pump-up garden sprayer works real fine, and actually put a light coat onto the logs. Okay. And if you notice how the logs are instantly starting to change color. Okay. What you'd want to do is do a small area like this here, take the hose, rinse this area off very thoroughly. You want to make sure that all the bleach is washed off the surface. Then come up, do the next area. Now if you noticed here, I started at the bottom of the log wall and working my way to the top. Okay, there's a reason for that. If you would start at the top, now I'm going to try to demonstrate this here. If you would start at the top and get some runs, okay, I'll let that sit here for just a moment. You'll see what happens. You get some streaks that appear on the surface. And if we take the bleach and come back over that, okay, it does lighten the logs, but you're still able to see some of the streaks. Now they're not real noticeable, but what happens is a lot of times when the WoodGuard is applied, these stains do show up a lot more than what they are right here. But by going from the bottom to the top, if anything drips down on it, it doesn't leave the streak marks. So that's the way you want to wash your walls down, from the bottom to the top.
If you do decide to bleach your home, as Kevin demonstrated, it's very important to wash the wall down after you've bleached the surface. And then at that time, it's a very good idea to let it dry as long as possible. A week, maybe more, is not bad, depending on the weather situation and so forth. We do want to have a perfectly dry surface when we get ready to apply the WoodGuard preservative onto this log wall. We also recommend not to try and spot bleach any area on a log wall. If you have just one area that's a little bit dark and you want to bleach that, don't be tempted just to do that area. You're going to want to do the whole house, actually, is the best policy. Just go ahead and do it. Bleach itself is quite inexpensive. It's a very good investment. It will clean the walls up, as Kevin showed you here, on a wall that was actually in pretty bad shape. So it's a good thing to do. Clean it up afterwards, wash it down, let it dry as long as you possibly can. The preservative that we use is a product called WoodGuard. It's a very good product. We've used it for many years. There's also a pigment, a colorant that comes with each 5-gallon container of WoodGuard. It comes in an assortment of colors. I have a color sample here. It's best to get with your sales representative, pick a color that's suitable for you, that you like. Keep in mind, one thing we feel is very important is to realize that you can always make your home darker, but it is quite hard to make it lighter. We do recommend, at least for the first treatment, you might want to go with a lighter finish. Typically the second treatment might take place a year or 18 months later. When that's applied, then if you want to darken it up a little more, you could do so. But the first time around, it's a good idea to keep it fairly light. As I mentioned, the WoodGuard does come in 5-gallon containers like you see here. There is a quart container of pigment that's allocated, one for each 5-gallon container of WoodGuard. That's not to say that you have to put it in full strength. We could supply the WoodGuard that has pre-mixed color in it, but we feel it's a better service to you, the homeowner, to allow you to decide how much pigment you really want to put into your WoodGuard. On a given house, you may have anywhere from 3 to 5, even more 5-gallon containers that are figured to cover your home. What we like to do when you're going to mix the colorant into the wood guard, in order to gain or to arrive with a very consistent mixture, if you're not planning to do it full strength, the best thing to do is get yourself a large container. A plastic trash can actually works quite well for this. You can get the large container, put all of your wood guard into that container, and then start adding pigment to it. Maybe just put 1 quart to 5 gallons, whatever. Put that into the wood guard that's in the container, stir it, mix it up thoroughly. It takes some time to do this. This is not just regular stain, it's actually stained pigment, and you're going to find that it's quite solid actually, especially in the bottom of the can. So you want to get all of the pigment out of the can into the mixture that you're working with. Start with a little bit like that. If you have an extra piece of log somewhere, something that you can test, it's a good idea to do that. It's a lot better to take some time doing a little bit of testing so you get the coloration that you desire rather than rushing right into wood guard in your home with the full colorant in it. Take your mixture, put some wood guard onto that extra piece of log. If the log had turned gray, you would want to go ahead and bleach that log the same way we did the log wall here. Let it dry out the same way so you got the same type of surface that's actually on your log home. Put the wood guard onto that log, and best policy, maybe let it set for a couple of days. Some of the colors you will find will change what seems like overnight. You'll apply them one day, come back the next day, and the actual tint of that color has changed somewhat. Usually it's not a radical change, but it's enough that it may be a difference to you. So a little bit of experimentation goes a long way before you actually commit to doing your whole home. The reason we put it all in one container and mix it that way, it's virtually impossible to say, I'm going to put half of this can in this 5 gallons and half in another 5 gallons. You will not get an accurate mixture that way. So put it all in one big container, mix it up very well, test it. If it's too light, maybe put another can in, and you can just keep going through that way. To apply the wood guard, the final application to your home, 2 methods that are very commonly used to apply the wood guard. It can be brushed on, which we somewhat prefer here, most of us that have done this regularly. When you brush that, especially that first application on, you're going to be right up close to what you're working with. You'll be able to make really sure that the wood guard's getting in any checks or any voids that happen to be in the log wall. You can see exactly what you're doing, and you'll be sure to get a good coat on there. The way to apply wood guard, whether you're brushing it or the option would be spraying it on. That is an option. Either method that you choose to use, you have to make sure that the wood guard is applied to the point of saturation. And by that, what I mean is you're putting it on thick enough that you actually have runs forming on the outside of the log wall. Those runs have to be brushed out. You want to keep after it with a brush. So even if you spray it, in reality, you're still going to be doing X amount of brush work to get rid of the runs that are coming down your logs. This substance can be applied from the top down. It's not critical or not important at all to start at the bottom. You can just start at the top. All wood products that are on the exterior of the home would receive wood guard. Fascia boards, soffits, of course the log wall, the trim, and so forth. From time to time, someone may want to have, say, paint their trim green or something of that nature. Green's a very popular color, dark blue is a popular color. If you want to do something like that, you do want to paint that trim and let it cure for a few days before you apply the wood guard. Do not try to wood guard the home and then come back and paint the trim. It just will not work properly. So any painting that you may want to do on the exterior of your home, do it before you apply the wood guard itself. If you're spraying this on, and if you're using, say, a painting contractor to do the work for you, the mindset of most painters is to paint a wall if they're spraying or even if they're brushing, and they're trying not to let runs form. They need to get away from that mindset. Especially if you have the tint applied to the wood guard, you can actually put on a light coat. You'll see the stain go on the wood and you think you've done what you need to do, where in reality, you're not putting on near enough. You need to create those runs. It's very important. When applying it, try your best to keep it off of your windows, keep it off of your shingles if at all possible. Today we use a fiberglass shingle, but it is asphalt impregnated, and the wood guard and the asphalt do not get along very well at all. Okay, so you want to, at all costs, keep it off of your shingles. Wood guard is also not designed to go on horizontal surfaces, and by that I mean on decks, that type of thing. It stays, I guess we would say, greasy for quite a while. It takes a while to actually cure. For that reason and other reasons, it's not designed to go on decks, that type of thing. The best thing to treat a deck with, just go to your local home supply, and I'm sure they have some type of treatment for your deck. When you are treating a deck, you don't want to do it right away anyway. With the ACQ or with the pressure-treated material, it's not designed to be treated right away. It should cure for a year or so before you do anything of that nature. Wood guard, very good product, needs to be applied properly. When you've mixed a tint with it, the container that you're working out of needs to be stirred on a regular basis while you're applying it. You don't want the pigment to settle to the bottom of that container. You could have a pretty good variation in color if you let that happen. We do get a lot of questions on how often the wood guard needs to be applied to a home. The best schedule, I guess I could say, is when the home is first completed. That would be the time to go ahead and put the wood guard on as we've described. Typically, and I say typically, it's not cast in stone, about a year, maybe 18 months later would be the time for the second application. We believe that that second application is applied or has to be applied so soon because the fact that the logs are kiln dried, they do absorb the product more than they would if they had more moisture in the wood itself. So we believe that to be a good thing. The wood guard itself, when you apply it, it is to be applied as one heavy coat, as we mentioned earlier. Do not be tempted to go back and put another coat on. And the best way to determine when your home is ready for a second coat, just squirt the house with a garden hose. If the water is repelled off of the surface very good or very readily, then it's probably not ready for a second coat. If you see the water automatically or instantly be absorbed into the wall, that means that you're getting where you need another coat to be put on. The concern about putting a coat on too soon is very real. What can happen, especially if you're using pigment in the wood guard, what can happen if you put the second coat on before it's really needed, the first coat is still acting to repel things from going into the log wall, and because of that, the second coat will not be absorbed into the wood. What that creates is a situation where the actual stained pigment that's in the wood guard just lays on the surface of the log wall. Eventually that will dry out. It becomes a very chalky substance. You can rub it off with your hand. Really not a pretty picture. So don't apply the second coat too soon. And by all means, when you put one coat on the first time around, if you have any left, don't just go back and put another coat over it. It will not absorb into the log wall and can create some real problems on your home. Another thing about wood guard, it is not designed to go on the interior of the house. Has nothing to do about any toxicity or anything of that nature. In fact, it's a very safe product, but it's just not designed for that application. There are other finishes that can be applied to the interior surface of your log home.